another compliment. There she is. Hey, everybody. Hot Mics in Maine here. Please hit like, subscribe, notification bell. World Cup just gets more and more exciting. Holy shit. Maybe 12 minutes left in the game. Messi, he does it again. They come back from 0-2 to 3-2. This is why I love the World Cup. No, this is why the rest of the world loves soccer more than we do. But I don't know a sport where we have an announcer like this. Oh my God.
La pelota que cae al área. No pudo Julián Messi. ¡Gol! ¡Gol! ¡Gol!
He's coming apart at the seams. That's football. That's football, my love. The real football. And God, is it good. Holy shit, what a comeback. Messi is the GOAT. He is the Tom Brady of the real football. And on he goes to the quarterfinals. Poor Egypt. I think they got fucked, but I don't know. We'll get into that. I mean, there was a couple of penalties. They got a goal called back that was totally unfair. That put them up 2-0. But then they rallied and scored again. So that became 2-0. Could have been 3-0 and might be a different story. But anyway, a tremendous win, and the star of the show is Messi. He's the biggest star in the World Cup, and his legend continues. Now, the other thing going on is Graham Plattner. This guy, I'm here in Maine, so I see the Graham Plattner signs wherever I go. Everybody's got him in the yard. He's the Mamdani of Maine. He is the Democrat socialist latest sensation that somehow people are buying into. I don't get it. I think the guy's a reject from the beginning, and was very clear about that. But a second woman has gone on camera, Lindsay Fifield. And she dated Graham Plattner on and off between 2013 and 2015. He was 28 years old or so when they started. He was taking classes at George Washington University right after his military service. He was working as a bartender on the Hill. She describes him then as jealous, controlling, volatile. He grabbed her on repeated occasions and left bruising on her. He was frightening, she said, when he was drinking. This is the second woman in a row that talks about his drinking. She felt trapped. She couldn't tell anybody. And then she said, oh, my God, he would pull condoms off during sex. He would do it in a sneaky way. He wouldn't tell me. So he would just, rip it off while she was telling him to protect, because she wasn't taking her own protection. And then he would sneak it off in the middle, which is it's a brutal violation, if we don't have trust. First thing, definitely with this guy, is quit drinking. Before you quit your campaign, just quit drinking. It obviously does not work for you. I looked everywhere, researched everywhere to see if he had done so. I don't see any research that says he is a sober person, but he absolutely needs to be. This woman, Lindsay Fifield, said all of his behavior left her frightful for her two little girls and their future relationships.
Out of this is I've reconciled with friends that I had become estranged from because they've reached out and remembered, like, he isolated you from us. You weren't allowed to be friends with us because he didn't want you going to certain hill parties that he wasn't invited to, or what. He was really controlling of my movements. And so it was, it has been really vindicating, or not vindicating, like good has come out of this, that I have reconciled with or reconnected with different friends and people who are like, oh my God, we wish that we had known the extent of what you were going through at that time.
So she is.
It explains a lot to them now. But also,
you can take her down here.
My behavior after that relationship in other relationships moving forward, and the way
Yeah. So this woman, she's another person that, people find credible. Jenny Rassicoat was the day before her. People find her credible. Now all the DSA kingmakers are telling Graham Plattner to get out of the way. Mom Donnie, he was asked, and he said absolutely. And this was, by the way, before Lindsay Fifield. He didn't wait. After the first interview,
That you
he did.
have a sort of ascendant role in the Democratic Party. Could you talk about the Maine Senate race? Do you think that Graham Plattner should drop out of the race? And do you have any intention of endorsing any candidates in competitive races outside of New York, El Said, or anyone else?
No, I believe that it's time for him to drop out of the race. And when it comes to my own endorsements, I've made 8 endorsements at the state and federal level. They've all been right here in New York City.
Yeah. Look, Mom Donnie may be a lot of things, but you get the sense he's not a sexual deviant. He's not a perverted and sort of, a reprobate in that way. I think Graham Plattner is, or certainly has a long history of it. And those kinds of people, just come on, man. We can do better. Bernie Sanders, who supported Graham Plattner stronger than anybody, said it's time for him to get out of the way. And then probably the most conclusive sign that he is totally done. And by the way, I mean, Harry is producing over there. Harry, do a quick Google search to see if Graham Plattner has dropped out. I mean, it could be. It's so evident that he needs to. And maybe it's possible that he already has. But the most conclusive sign that he's done is the Maine Super Political Action Committee for Democrats running for Senate seats around the country said it would redirect the $24 million they had cordoned off for Graham Plattner to other campaigns if he doesn't get out. So now he's going to have no money. So Mr. Plattner is not going to Washington.
He has not dropped out as of yet.
All right. I bet before we're done today, he will. Let me know. I'm sure you have like a club.
I'm gonna go place a bet. I'm in Vegas. I'm gonna go drop some cash right now. What's the over under?
Put it on Kalshi. Put it on Kalshi. I think before the hour, he'll be done. Spencer Pratt is not going to the mayor's mansion in Los Angeles, but he did go to Washington, D.C. with his son and 2 other people, looked like his parents, frankly. And he said that he would not stop fighting for his community. And he's starting something called the War Foundation. I got to text Spencer and make sure that I'm clued in on this, but he's starting something called the War Foundation, which means he's going to, I guess it's a political action group, and he wants, funding, and this is his new cause in life. So he will be giving up crystal sales, and he wants to fight what I think it's a worthy battle, is this insurgent socialism in our country. War. It's called the War Foundation. W, win the war against political corruption with innovative new media. A, advocate for transparency, accountability, integrity in government and culture. I'm all about that. Karen Bass, mayor of Los Angeles. Gavin Newsom, governor of California. Will you please show me the budget? Put it online so we can all see where everything is going, how it was spent. There's no reason that's not. You work for us. We should all be seeing that. And R, the final, restore common sense. Roll back socialism through our vital institutions. Socialism will destroy our country. So I think he's doing some good work there. Good for you, Spencer. That's a good pivot, and a quick pivot. A smart one. So there's your update on Spencer Pratt. And now, before we get to the main star of the show, which is Amy Griffin, the wife of massive hedge fund billionaire John Griffin, who wrote last summer's book and was the toast of the town called The Tell. There is a lot of complications with her story, and it breaks my heart because there are a lot of people that are going to suffer because of And I still have a hard time saying that what she did was premeditated evil, or total and complete narcissism, because who does that? But she is a very wealthy woman, a very attractive woman, a woman with a lot of money who, would do all the seed funding for female founders like Gwyneth Paltrow and Sarah Blakely, the woman who started Spanx and, Bumble. And she invested in all these huge companies because her husband has $10 billion. So she's like that, women's empowerment female founder. She's the toast of every luncheon in New York and Hollywood, and all the A-list fell to her feet to kiss her feet. Everyone fell over themselves to have her on speed dial and to be on hers. I mean, and yet at the core, she decided to take it one more step and become the greatest author of all time, sharing the most deeply personal story of all time. And there is a big problem at the core of it. It doesn't seem that it's true. And there's lots that has happened in this case, and it's the legal work is starting to occur. 2 hearings have happened, and there's another one in a couple weeks. So it's time we get going on this. But before I dive deeply into that, my friends, I want to talk about Blake a little bit and her $8 million invoice. We've got some news on that. That's just really fascinating. It's going to blow your mind. I mean, she wants $8 million. Blake wants $8 million, and she submitted this invoice to the judge, or Mike Gottlieb, her lawyer, did. And we're all wondering, how do you come up with $8 million as attorney's fees that should be recoverable under California Code 47-1, which prevents countersuits, occurring to those who have the courage to come forward as survivors. I mean, who's going to come forward and say something horrible happened to them if a massive counter lawsuit is going to hit them? So it's a noble and worthy statute. And as we know, it was hijacked by Crazy Blake. And so to recoup her legal fees, she submitted a bill for $8 million. It looks like this: Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher, which is the one of her law firms, they'll get $1.1 million. These are fees related to the defense. Okay. Remember, Justin Baldoni countersued her, a $400 million defamation suit. He threw that. He had to do it because it had to stem the tide. Everyone was falling in, like this woman, Amy Griffin. They're very similar, it seems. Like this woman, Amy Griffin, everybody was falling in line behind Blake. Her co-stars online, social media, the comment sections, like, oh my God, this guy's horrible. Whoa. He had to do something overwhelming, something so gripping and alarming that it would stop the flow in its tracks. And he did. So he came up with a $400 million. He never expected to collect on it. Brian Friedman simply did it to get people to the court of public opinion to stop its overwhelming avalanche against him. So the judge did throw it out a year ago, and Blake submits the invoice. And the fees related to the defense of Justin's countersuit in the months that she had to defend against this. Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher says they have a bill for $1.1 million. Manat, Phelps, and Phillips, another law firm, has $1.1 million. So a total of $2.2 million. She doesn't break it down it's not an itemized bill, but she's saying that's the bill, $2.2 million for the defense. Now, she said so much of the work in defending against Justin's defamation suit also has crossover with what we're doing, as plaintiffs going after Justin. There's so much crossover work there that really, because they're all connected, he should be on the hook for that too. So then you see the second line, fees related to both matters. $3.3 million from Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher, $1.8 from Manat, Phelps, and Phillips, for a total of $5.2 million. And then, of course, you have the expenses column, and who that's lunch. Those are salads brought in for the legal team as they all work in the conference room. Literally crazy, all that stuff. $530,000. So you get a total of $8,035,000. That's what Blake is putting forward. It is crazy. She says there's all that crossover work, you know. Isn't that amazing? All the crossover work should really be, you know, why? Why wouldn't it go the other way? Why is the joint efforts, you know, for your work as a plaintiff, you know, why wouldn't that, why does that have to be covered? Here's the killer. Oh, by the way, keep in mind, you know, his defamation suit was, of course, as we know, thrown out. But her SH claims were also thrown out. So it seems to me like it's a wash. But the killer is Baldoni's identical defamation suit that he filed against the New York Times. He didn't just nail Blake with a big one. He filed a $150 million lawsuit against the New York Times, which also was thrown out by the judge. Guess how much they're asking for to recoup their legal fees? $150,000. Blake wants $8 million. The New York Times is like, give us 150 G's. We understand. They want, their writers look terrible in all of this because they colluded with Blake Lively and I would assume her publicist, Leslie Sloan, from the beginning in what they thought would be a landslide against this guy. They want out of this. They don't want their name mentioned. They've got other work. In fact, they're at the root of the expose on Amy Griffin, which we're about to talk about. So sometimes they get it right, and sometimes they just get carried away in their feminist empowerment movements, and they listen to, you know, writers and journalists who gain too much power, like Megan Twohey, and they just want out. Give us 150 large. We'll see you later. So Blake's in trouble, right? You've got the precedent, and I'm assuming Brian Friedman knows about this 150,000 that the Times is asking for, and I'm sure he will weaponize the hell out of it. There's no way she's getting 8 million. Can't. So another high-profile woman. Is there another high-profile woman to have made false claims of SA and RAP? This one, the extremely wealthy former toast of the town, high society star Amy Griffin, wife of John Griffin, the multi-billionaire hedge funder. She took her high society status and her connections and her great looks and ability to seed businesses of female founders and ingratiate herself with the A-list crowd. They clamored, as I said, to be on her speed dial and to have her cell phone number in theirs. She became number one on the name droppers list. I mean, you had all the big stars walking around at cocktail parties going, oh my God, I was like on the phone with Amy Griffin the other day. Oh, you know Amy Griffin. Oh, she became the star du jour. Okay. Yeah. Everybody wanted it. Stunning. I mean, beautiful woman. You got it all. This is what's interesting. There's Katie Couric down there in the comments section. And yeah, I don't listen. Reese and Gwyneth and Katie and Oprah and Jenna and Mariska and everybody, Gail, they all fell at Amy's feet. Before we laugh at them and say, ha ha, look at these people. Oh my God, they look so stupid clamoring over this. Well, hang on for a second. We got to get through all of this. It's not their job to vet the accounts of this fabulous woman. We all want to be in the company of fabulous people. We all like our heroes and things, right? It's not their job. It is the job, however, of, you know, Penguin, the publishing company. They're supposed to vet this stuff further. But here's the story. In March 2025, Amy released the wildly successful, gripping tale of her early adolescence growing up in Amarillo, Texas, and most notably, a very violent and severe, traumatizing SA that she suffered at the hands of a teacher she trusted who had been there at the end of it all over 30 years. Amy claims that while under the influence of MDMA, which I have done, the active chemical in ecstasy and Molly, and she said that she recovered memories of being RAP'd on many occasions by this middle school teacher and it started when she was 12 years old. She said, "I knew that these memories were real," she writes. "My body knew what had happened to me, the way I would shake when I would tell my story." She even talks about going to the dentist and the guy like holding her mouth open. And she's like violently like fighting back against the man. And he grabs her by the shoulder and says, "Hey, you got to sit still." And she's like, "Don't touch me." And she's, writes about these accounts and how much this had gripped her, but she never knew, she says, why she would have these guttural reactions towards men, towards certain situations. Anyway, the book was a massive success, huge success, over 100,000 copies. She got $1 million advance. It was #1 on the New York Times for the first 4 weeks. It had all the ingredients. It was, post Me Too survival story. And like happens, a lot of these publishers say, well, what celebrities or influencers, do you think would be able to support the sales of this book? And that's what they look at more than the actual factual evidence in a book. And she's like, well, how's Reese Witherspoon, Gwyneth Paltrow, Sheryl Sandberg, Oprah Winfrey, Katie Couric, and she rolls out all these names, and they're like, okay, wow, if all these women are going to be singing about it, we got to do it, which might have blinded them a little bit. But remember, now, Amy is also a very powerful woman living in New York City. She's on the board of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Big stuff. Her husband is over $10 billion. She seeded money for Bumble, the dating app, Goop, Spanx, all these things. Gwyneth Paltrow, bless her heart, said, look, this is an unbelievable book. I don't know if she meant that literally. I'm so deeply proud of Amy, calling her a beautiful, deeply positive, brilliant woman. This is the benefit luncheon crowd who are, Amy's the keynote speaker, and oh my God, we're changing the world. Oh my God. The limousine libs of the world are going crazy for this woman. Reese said by opening her heart, she became a beacon for women everywhere. Now, they're on the record with this. I do want to say, it's okay. We all do this. Every one of us gets impressed. I'm so sick and tired. How many times has some guy said to me, "Oh, Bushy, you got to meet so-and-so. He's incredible. He's a billionaire, dude." Always throw that in there. We're so impressed by money. He's a billionaire. Oh, great. Well, he's a billionaire. Well, then he must be very thoughtful and intelligent and have better advice on things than other people. And, it's kind of revolting, but everybody's susceptible. But Amy writes, in this book, she writes explicitly about this RAP and this SA. It's violent. She writes, the first thing I remembered, and this is after she took the MDMA, she sat with these people. Her husband, by the way, a big financer of the Lycos company, which does, is at the forefront of psychedelic assisted therapy. And so they had this facilitator come to their apartment in New York, and she did this MDMA journey. And she said, the first thing I remembered was my head hitting the wall. And I heard a clang as his belt buckle hit the floor. So violent, so brazen. The middle school bathroom, the locker room, a classroom, under the bleachers. He RAP'd me there too. He tied her hands behind her back with a bandana, described putting his in her mouth and his pubic hair on my face. She says he beat her, dragged her on the bathroom floor, washed her mouth out with soap. On the night of the 8th grade dance, he assaulted her in a classroom, bent over a desk, a violent RAPing. And then, of course, she says that the teacher told her, if you tell anyone, I'll rip your teeth out. So this is unbelievable level of violence that she talks about. And it started at 12. Here's an interesting point. Amy's teacher, this person, had no other complaints in over 30 years. Does someone do this once? I mean, don't people like this usually have some kind of pattern? No. And everyone knows who it is. I can't say the teacher's name, but it became obvious by the description of the book. Everyone knew who the teacher was in real life. And the police have never approached him, never said anything because people are like, And then they had these book release parties when the tale came out in Amarillo, Texas. And all the people that grew up in this town, they started to wonder, wait, really? Like, why would this happen one time with this teacher who otherwise had an excellent reputation? No one else came forward. He did it once, and not only that, but to the wealthiest girl in town, like to the most success. Usually you prey on, right? Someone would, you think, would prey on someone with less resources, but she was definitely the most well-to-do family. Their family owned these convenience stores called Tootin' Totem, and they had 50 of them then. They now have 100. So other than marrying a billionaire, she came from a very good family too. In the book, she writes that the final assault happened when she was 16. So again, at these book parties in Amarillo, Texas, people are very confused. They're like, how? Okay. You know, I myself had an experience that I repressed for, I always knew it was lingering there, but through a different method, I recovered this. It was never totally gone. It was just buried, but I recovered something. It didn't take MDMA. That had nothing to do with it. But I always knew it was there, and I was 8 years old. But between 12 and 16, now this is just one occasion, 2 occasions, but between 12 and 16, that's 4 years of violent SA and RAP and all this stuff. People were wondering, like, that needed to be recovered. She writes, the final assault happened at 16. She was en route to a tennis match and she ran into the teacher. Moments later, she found herself following him numbly into the team room at the tennis center. In describing the incident, Amy Griffin addresses a reader's potential skepticism, as she does frequently in the book. And it's true, even in the letter to the editor, to the pitch, when she was pitching publishing companies, she would write. You'd assume that remembering this, I'd have thought, how could I not remember? But wasn't I 16 at the time? This is Amy writing this now. I must have wondered, why didn't I stop him? I must have thought, how could he have done this in such a public place? Why didn't I say no? I must have thought, where were my boundaries? But she says, I didn't think any of that. Held in the golden arms of this magical medicine, the compassion I felt for young Amy was absolute. So I have texted I work very closely with a man who is at the forefront of psychedelic assisted therapy in Los Angeles. And recently I've had Marcus Capone, the Navy SEAL, on Hot Mics. It's a big cause of mine. And I mention it because I hope this doesn't set back progress, right? Like all of a sudden people are like, don't trust MDMA. MDMA has been derailed before. It was about to get FDA clearance, and one terrible incident involving SA of somebody who was under the influence derailed it. One bad apple. But I hope this doesn't have a broader effect into something that's really, really helpful for people. I've never heard of it recovering deep memories. I've always known as MDMA takes the ego and tampons it all the way down so that you can just live with the simple truth. And maybe that connected with her here. I also want to keep a little bit of space for Amy on the side here, that she was a kid and she, it's someone else's. She heard a story and it became something that she lived, and that she's a victim of her own fantastical mind. And she's not a villain. She's not let's just hold a teeny bit of space that she is not a premeditated narcissist who it just wasn't enough to be unbelievably rich and great looking and deeply connected. I need to also be, on a massive pedestal as a victim who's saving and helping the world and girls everywhere like this. You know what I mean? Like, you've got so much, but God, I need more. Anyway, the New York Times, which totally, boffed the Blake Lively situation by literally reprinting her craziness, did a deep dive here over several months, starting in September of 2025. They got into Amy's background, and we learned about the family and the convenience stores, the wealth, the marrying of all the things that she has done, how rich her husband is. She took the MDMA because her husband was a believer, like me. And she told the facilitator before she took the pill, she said, "There's something I can't face. I know something happened to me, something I'm talking around. There's something, but I don't know what it is. And I'm hoping that this will help me here." 5 minutes into the session, she writes in the book, she sat up, she bolted upright, and she said, "Why is he here?" And the facilitator said, "Who?" "Mr. Mason from my middle school," she said. Now, she spoke to a police investigator arranged by her lawyer and said, "When you're reporting this to the police in Amarillo all these years later, and you're writing about this, leave the psychedelic assisted part out. Just, tell your story." And the cop down there who she reported it to, I think his name was Gordon Eastley. He said it was one of the most credible phone calls he's ever had with a victim. Like, she was very, very believable. But then he told her, sadly, this falls out of the statute of limitations, so you can't pursue this violent teacher. So the New York Times found a lot of complications with her allegations in this study they did, citing a source named Claudia. This is a big, big character in the book, and now a big character in her life. Claudia is the person now referred to as Jane Doe because she has taken legal action against Amy. But Claudia is in the book, and she says this is stolen trauma. This is her story. Claudia claims the same incident that Amy writes about, being violently, RAP'd in a janitor's closet at a middle school dance, actually did happen to her. And Claudia was not a well-to-do person. She was poor. She was raised in a foster home, a group foster home in Amarillo, abused as a child. Now, a $21 an hour home aide for Alzheimer's patients, while Amy is, extremely rich, like over the top rich. But all of this is downplayed in the book. So Claudia claimed that she met with Amy in 2019 for coffee. And the first time she'd seen her since Amarillo, they were out in Palm Springs. And Amy all of a sudden just calls her and says, like, "Hey, we went to middle school together. Do you want to get together and have coffee? I'm out here too in Palm Springs. And she was like, okay. So they met at a boutique coffee shop and talked about their memories of growing up, but no talk about what had happened. Amy just said, oh, I've been, seeding these female empowerment businesses. She referred, according to Claudia, now Jane Doe, Amy referred to herself as a girl boss. I hate that. Fuck God, do I hate this? Such an obnoxious term. Girl boss. Just say boss. She referred to herself as a girl boss and told me she considered me a girl boss. I said, well, right now I'm working as a cleaning lady. She's like, yeah, but you're like a girl boss. Ugh, vomitus. The details of this encounter, having coffee, seem pretty specific, right? And they were only several years ago. But Amy claims that they never met. I didn't go out to coffee with this person. What are you talking about? I've never met her in person like this. Well, I spoke to Claudia's lawyer and I said, I assume there's an Amex receipt. Somebody paid for it. So the coffee shop, maybe they have recollection of these two people. Claudia says she was contacted after that by a talent agent. She assumed a guy named Dominic around April of 2022, 3 years after the coffee, and he was inquiring about optioning her story. Hey, look, I'm in production and I'm a producer and I work with talent and we want to. So she begins these conversations with this guy and he's gleaning information about her life several times a week. They're on the phone for about a month. And this woman, Claudia, tells her about her experience in middle school in Amarillo. And she begins to tell him about the assault and the stained dress of the poofy dress she was wearing the night that she was RAP'd, and the stain on that dress she had borrowed from Amy. The rich girl had given her a dress to wear to the dance, and she returned that dress to Amy with a stain on it. And she told this talent agent in 2023, before the book came out, about being in the bathroom and being assaulted and could feel the teacher's cowboy boot on her back. How specific a detail is that? And bandana stuffed in her mouth and being hit with a belt. This happened to this woman. So the talent agent, after gleaning all this information from Claudia, says, look, okay, great. Well, the next person you'll hear from is an assistant of mine, and we're going to meet in person, and we'd like to develop this. So Claudia, now Jane Doe in the lawsuit, started doing a little bit of research. Like a friend of hers was like, don't you think you should look into Dominic, this guy, a little bit? They found nothing about Dominic. Dominic, a talent agent, a producer, couldn't find anything about the guy. And then when she brought that up with him on the phone, he ghosted. So who knows? He was a private investigator. He was someone connected who was simply gleaning all of her personal information. Unbelievable. So next, Jane Doe thought about, calling a New York Times reporter. And then she was like, oh my God. She found out that Amy had actually written this book. She didn't even know that Amy had written this book. So she got the book and she's like, holy shit, I better read this book. And in the book, she describes the dress as frilly, the assault occurring at an evening school dance in 8th grade. Amy writes that the dress was pulled up over her head. She was bent over a desk and that she felt the weight of the dress blotting out the light. All details that she had given to this alleged talent agent. Literally, the dress blotting out the light. A quote. There's no chance that this is a coincidence, is it? So in March of 2023, Amy started circulating the book proposal to publishers. And the book was, instead of called The Tell, when it was circulating, it was called Believe Me. And I've read the proposal. I have it. She name dropped people, like I told you, who might help her promote the book. Amy Schumer, Laura Dern, Naomi Watts, Katie Couric, Oprah, Savannah, Anna Wintour, all these people. And then she ultimately sold it. 5 weeks before release, Oprah and Gail both promoted the book, to their combined 4.3 million followers on Oprah and Oprah Daily. Jessica Seinfeld and Savannah Guthrie followed suit. They were like, oh my God, this is it. This was like the woman everybody wanted to be in the room with. And so the glitterati fell at their feet. And they're all like, you got to read the tell. You got to read the tell. And like I said before, people in Amarillo from that time who lived back then, they were like scratching their heads. They were mad at the teacher first, right? Like, who is this person? And then confused that others had not come forward. Again, the one-time offender. The richest girl in town is his one and only target. Why didn't she have bruises on her that anyone saw then, or missing hair that would have corroborated such a violent attack? And then they realized this was all remembered because of drugs, like MDMA is what we're relying on here. MDMA does such good stuff. Again, I'm really worried that this is going to be a problem for what's a vitally important therapy. But anyway, after all this, the book comes out. Amy donated a soft interview room at a family support services center in Amarillo in anticipation of other women, coming forward with similar experiences. She donated this very fancy soft interview room. It had recording equipment in it, and very gentle florals and furniture and comfortable rooms where women could come and do an interview and give their accounts and feel protected and safe. What a lovely thing she did. No one has ever used it in 3 years. It has never been touched. No one's come in, and certainly not about this teacher. So the sergeant, the person the police officer she, gave her account to, and conveniently left out that MDMA was that, he was totally surprised when he found out that all of her report is because of MDMA, a drug. He didn't know that. When he originally spoke to Amy, she failed to mention it. He just figured, that she had found the courage to come forward. He was deeply moved. So Claudia, in the book, Jane Doe, now suing Amy Griffin, filed this lawsuit. Claudia now is Jane Doe, and she describes the dress as frilly and the assault occurring at an evening school dance in the 8th grade. She writes that the dress was over her head, that she was bent over a desk, that she felt the weight of the dress blotting out the light. Claudia says, Jane Doe says, I recognize this scene closely mirrors my own experience at this very dance, wearing a floral, puffy dress borrowed by Amy, being led away from the dance by a teacher, being sexually assaulted in a secluded area, and then returning to the dance, disheveled and ashamed. In the tell, Amy also writes about being violently assaulted by the teacher in the middle school bathroom, describing being thrown to the floor, having her hands restrained, being hit, suffering traumatic, painful attacks. Claudia says, I recognize this description as closely resembling the second assault I experienced in the school bathroom, when the teacher put his boot in my back and stuffed a bandana in my mouth and slammed me against the wall and hit me with a belt. Okay, there's no way that happened to two people. Two girls in the same class, those exact same details. And by the way, of course, as you know, Claudia is saying, what the most interesting thing is, Claudia is not claiming, she's claiming it was a different teacher. And someone who, by the way, left the school district very shortly after and disappeared. That's who she claims did it to her. Not the guy who still lives in Amarillo that Amy Griffin says did it to her. The book further describes a classmate given the pseudonym Claudia, who grew up in a difficult and unstable environment. Well, Jane Doe is that person. And by the way, her name is out there now. It's public. I just I don't feel comfortable saying it. I think she should remain Jane Doe, and she will, as far as I'm concerned. But we know her name. That she says the description of this Claudia in this book fits me and only me. It couldn't be anyone else. There was only 2 girls in the home, as well as some other boys in this foster home. I'm the only one with blonde hair. I'm the only one who had this happen. And she has corroborating accounts of that too. It was called the Presbyterian Children's Home. And she was a little girl who struggled for acceptance from, more privileged, cooler kids like Amy. So, yeah, this can't be a coincidence, guys. But, like Blake and others, and we see this all the time, she is doubling down. 3 weeks ago, on June 16th, Amy filed a countersuit. Defamation, alleging none of the claims are true from Claudia. About their meeting. Never met for coffee. Never lent Claudia a dress back in the day, although there are others who remember that. I'm sure a receipt from the coffee shop could explain that part of it. The talent agent, Dominic, says they found him. He says he never called her for this purpose. Well, why would you? You didn't call her for this purpose. What'd you call her for? Why would you call her at all? How would you track down this woman and want to hear her story? But you say you didn't call her because you wanted to hear her story, just wanted to hear her voice? Jesus Christ, doesn't add up. So Jane Doe's attorney, Zach Rosenblatt, responded on June 29th to this filing countersuit, this defamation suit from Amy Griffin on June 16th, doubling down on this woman. He responded on June 29th with major discovery, including several testimonies and a big see it in court. So these are the things I was reading last night. There's a testimonial from William Jennings Bryan. He was a boy who lived in the foster care family home, the Presbyterian Family Center. He had a crush on Claudia, the girl described as Claudia in the book back then. He confirms the details that he took her to that dance. They were driven by a chaperone from the foster home. And he says she disappeared in the middle of the dance. And he remembers details of her tousled hair and her frilly dress and her saying to him that the teacher had engaged in sexual acts with her. He corroborates that. This is not a friend of hers. This is not an accomplice. He says he hasn't seen her since they graduated that high school, but he remembers it very well because that was his crush. Then you got Tanya Francine Vandenbosch, an older kid also living in that foster home. She said, after the dance, I recall that Jane Doe came to me and asked me to help remove a stain from the dress that she had borrowed. I remembered she was acting strange and really embarrassed, but she did not tell me what had happened to cause the stain. And then a person named Pastor Jody Shelton, a man who is a pastor living in Georgia now, also a classmate of Amy Griffin and Jane Doe back in Amarillo. He says Amy's description of Claudia in the book can only fit Jane Doe. It is without question her. Quote, blue eyes and blunt cut bangs. I only realized she lived in foster care when I saw her boarding the big white bus that everyone knew took kids back to the group home. And Amy's writing about, those are her words, the big white bus that took these kids back to the group home. And they would come to school every day. And that this girl, Claudia, had blue eyes and blunt cut bangs. Well, who else? Only Jane Doe is that person. And then they have a testimonial from Janet Nowak, a coworker from Nevada, living there now, coworker with Jane Doe now. And she says that her friend had told her about the agent calling her and getting all the details of her life story. And then you have a woman named LaRonda, a coworker of Jane Doe as well. They've worked helping survivors together. Says that Jane Doe told her this exact story, and all the details were told to her. This is crucial. All the details were told to her before Amy wrote the treatment or conceived of the tell. That's a huge witness if this goes to a co-worker of Jane Doe says every detail of this was told to me before Amy ever conceived of the book. There's no way, in other words, that the reverse is true. Now she's trying to hijack Amy's actual memories. How does this end well for Amy Griffin? I get interesting. In Amy Griffin's treatment, in the deal she made with the publishing house, they said, she said, look, I retrieved these memories. They're recovered memories from MDMA. I believe them entirely to be me. But maybe there could be something else. The publishing company did not do any research, any vetting on their own, because it is a jungle out there in the publishing world. And the fact that they had Oprah and Katie and all the big stars ready to get behind and power this book for her, they knew it would sell. And they're just looking for books that sell. I mean, it's a struggling industry, thanks to podcasts. Hey now. Anyway, so Zach Rosenblatt, the lawyer for Jane Doe, filed a motion to dismiss Amy's anti-SLAPP defamation suit from June 16th. And there will be an oral hearing on July 23rd to see if this case is going forward. And we will be there every step of the way. Okay, comment section. Harry, you've been putting these up, right? Oh, I see Jenny Lou has been up for about 3 hours with the same comment. Everyone tell Harry he's supposed to be working the comment section. I think he was so into the story that we missed our group feedback, mostly entirely. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see what's going on. Your thoughts, folks. What do you think about this? Cheers from Toronto. Mr. Bush is so right. I respect him for it. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm definitely, putting forth. This story fascinates me. It is wild, right? Here's someone says, Dr. Sam Vaknin, world lecturer on this malignant narcissism, chat with a narcissist who is cognitive of his behavior and warns people of dangers. I don't know if that's her case. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to find the off-ramp for Amy Griffin, right? Where is the off-ramp? How does she get out of this? Does she say, hey, you know what? This is clearly a mistake. She's gone too far. She's already filed a defamation suit against Claudia, the girl from the book who was in the foster home. She's filed a defamation suit against her. She's past like Blake, past the point of no return. I mean, and where, oh God, the A-list, the glitterati, all these people, they're dead silent. They're dead silent. You don't hear from them, and how embarrassing. And again, I just don't want to. I want to give them some grace. We all have stars in our eyes, even big stars. Gwen Campbell here says, if you read her proposal that's on the court dockets, when she was shopping it around, huge details were completely different than what ended up being the book released. So they did some editing, but did they do any vetting? Right? Clearly not enough. At least. Yeah, this is good morning. Good morning, Joy. Yeah, it's a wild story, Christina Holiday. It is a wild story. I don't understand what drives people to do this. You've got so much money. You've got so much influence. You're seeding these girl boss companies. You're hot. You're great looking. You're like mother of 4 kids and your billionaire husband who's fit and good looking. Like the world is your oyster. It's not enough. It's not enough. I need to be revered. Is that what's going on? Oh, wow. It's just nuts. It's just nuts. Anyway, that is the story of Amy Griffin. That is where we are. Joyce Mahar with the final word. It's like the book A Million Little Pieces that Penguin also published turned out to be a complete lie, like this book. So it seems. Is she mentally ill? She's mentally. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But here's what I'm interested in. And I will do a little research on this with the doctor I told you about. I texted him, the guy that runs the psychedelic group that has helped a family member of mine. And he said to me, I texted him just before we started the podcast. I said, I'm doing this story on Amy Griffin. She claims that MDMA allowed her to recover these memories. Could this be? He says, I've heard about this, Billy. I know this story, and it's certainly possible. And that is to some degree what MDMA can do. Okay. That said, our MDMA expert in the group is another person. I'd run this by her to get her thoughts. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and we'll follow up on that from every single angle. Again, the next hearing is July 23rd, and that is when the judge will decide if this goes forward. Okay, love you guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And now we've got the next book. I know everybody's talking about Belle Burden. I bought the book The Strangers by Belle Burden. I don't know. Oprah recommended it. If I knew, I wouldn't have bought it. I don't think that's in the same category as this. I think Belle Burden does have a story. She's definitely not as rich as Amy Griffin, but certainly a connected life. I don't think they're the same situation. She's not claiming violent, recovered memories of RAP and things like that. She might have understated how cheap and terrible her husband was. Maybe he wasn't so bad. But hey, anyone who's been divorced knows people can treat each other like shit in such terrible ways. Okay, that's it for us. We will have more on this coming up, but I'm so glad this is back on the radar. That's it from Maine. I'll see you guys tomorrow. We okay here at 11 a.m. Eastern time, 8 Pacific? I know it's probably difficult for a few people. You get into a pattern, but it helps me out in a huge way. And if you miss it, just catch it later. Love you. Ta-ta. Oh, I get to hit the end. And...
Oh, God, it's me doing me, right?
That's insane.
Billy Bush. What a pleasure.
Another compliment. There she is.